I had just returned home from a week-long business trip, eager to relax in the comfort of my own home. As I stepped inside, something felt off. The air felt different, almost like it was charged with a silent whisper of something amiss. I brushed it off as post-travel fatigue and headed to the kitchen for a glass of water. That's when I noticed it, a coffee cup in the sink that wasn't mine. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I live alone, and nobody else has a key to my house. I checked the rest of the kitchen, and my unease deepened. There were unfamiliar food items in the fridge and a brand of cereal on the counter I never buy. It was as if someone else had been living here in my absence. My heart pounding, I moved cautiously through the rest of the house. In the laundry room, mixed in with my clothes, were items I didn't recognize. Someone else's stuff, in my house. The reality hit me hard. Someone had been here, maybe still was. I didn't know what to do. Should I call the police? But what if it was just a misunderstanding? No, the evidence was too strong. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "There's someone in my house," I whispered frantically to the dispatcher. "I live alone, but someone's been here. Maybe still is." They assured me officers were on the way and advised me to find a safe place to hide. I couldn't just hide, though. I needed to know. Armed with a kitchen knife for protection, I decided to check the basement, a place I rarely visited. As I crept down the stairs, every step creaked under my weight, sounding deafeningly loud in the silent house. The basement was dimly lit, the air stale and musty. My eyes scanned the room. That's when I saw it. A makeshift bed in the corner, a stack of books, some clothes. This wasn't just a break-in. Someone had been living here. Suddenly, a noise upstairs jolted me. Footsteps. My breath hitched in my throat. The intruder was in the house, right now. Panic surged through me. I was cornered in the basement with no easy escape. I could hear the footsteps moving with a purpose, descending the staircase. My grip tightened on the knife. The dim light from above cast shadows, and then a figure appeared. Tall, broad-shouldered, a silhouette against the faint light. I hid behind some old furniture, my heart racing. The intruder moved closer, his steps slow and deliberate. I could hear his breathing now, heavy and ragged. He was searching for something, maybe for me. I realized then I couldn't confront him, not alone. I needed to get out, to escape and wait for the police outside. I waited for him to move further into the basement before making my move. Carefully, I edged towards the stairs, trying to be as silent as possible. But as I neared the steps, the floorboard under me creaked loudly. The footsteps stopped. He had heard me. I dashed for the stairs, not looking back. I could hear him behind me now, his steps quickening. The terror propelled me forward. I burst through the basement door and into the main hall. That's when I saw the blue and red lights flashing outside through the window. The police had arrived. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. The intruder was right behind me, his presence looming like a dark cloud. He lunged at me, grabbing my arm. I screamed, struggling to break free. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and in his, I saw a chilling mix of desperation and madness. I twisted and turned, trying to use his momentum against him. In the struggle, the knife slipped from my grip, clattering to the floor. It was now a desperate fight for survival, every second feeling like an eternity. Just then, the front door crashed open. "Police! Drop to the ground!" they shouted. The intruder hesitated, and that moment of distraction was all I needed. I pulled away and ran towards the officers. They quickly subdued the intruder, handcuffing him as he struggled. I collapsed to the ground, my whole body shaking uncontrollably. The terror of the last few hours washed over me in waves. As the officers led him away, I looked at the man who had invaded my home, my sanctuary. Who was he? Why my house? Those questions swirled in my mind as the police began their investigation. The night was finally over, and the immediate terror had passed. As the police led the intruder away, I stood there, trembling, trying to process the whirlwind of events. My home, once my sanctuary, felt like a foreign land, tainted by the presence of a stranger. One of the officers approached me, a sympathetic look in his eyes. "He's a homeless man," he explained gently. "Seems he found a way into your house and made it his shelter while you were away. We don't think he meant any harm." But the explanation did little to comfort me. The fact that a stranger, homeless or not, had been living in my house without my knowledge was deeply unsettling. My sense of security was shattered, replaced by a gnawing sense of vulnerability. My home no longer felt like mine, and I wondered if it ever would again. It was a rainy night, the kind that made our old house creak more than usual. I was in Jacob's room, my 6-year-old, reading him his favorite pirate story. He was snuggled under his star-print blanket, his eyes heavy with sleep. That's when things took a turn. Halfway through the story, Jacob sat up abruptly, peering into the dim corner of the room. "Mom, can he sit here?" he asked, patting the bed beside him. I paused, a chill running down my spine. "Who, Jacob?" "The boy. He likes the story too," Jacob said, looking earnestly at the empty space. Trying to hide my unease, I played along. "Sure, he can listen." I forced a smile and continued reading, but Jacob's attention was fixed on the empty air beside him, nodding and smiling as if in response to someone. The room, usually a cozy refuge, felt strangely cold. I attributed it to the storm outside, but a part of me couldn't shake off the feeling that we weren't alone. I read faster, eager to finish the story and leave the room. As I read, Jacob occasionally giggled or whispered, as if having a silent conversation with his invisible friend. Each laugh sent a shiver down my spine. Was it just a child's imagination, or was something more unsettling at play? Finishing the story, I tucked Jacob in, but he clung to my hand. "Don't go, Mom. He gets sad when you leave." His words echoed in the silent room, amplifying my fear. I kissed Jacob goodnight, trying to sound cheerful. "It's okay, honey. Everyone needs to sleep, even your friend." I turned off the light, the room plunging into darkness save for the faint glow of the nightlight. Stepping out of Jacob's room, the hallway felt oppressive, as if the air itself was thicker. I could hear the soft patter of the rain against the windows, a stark contrast to the silence inside. Settling on the couch, I tried to focus on a book, but the words blurred together. The whisper of the rain and the occasional creak of the house did little to soothe me. I glanced at the clock, the hands moving slowly, each tick a reminder of the long night ahead. After the strange events of the previous night, I knew I needed answers. I started with a simple Google search about the house's history, but found nothing unusual. Then, I remembered the old couple who sold us the house. I found their number and called, my heart racing. The woman who answered was hesitant at first, but when I mentioned my son's experiences, she paused. There was a sadness in her voice as she finally opened up. "We had a son," she said quietly. He died in an accident. In that house." I was stunned. The pieces clicked together. Jacob's friend, the cold spots, the whispers. It was their son, lingering in the only place he'd known as home. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. This wasn't just some made-up story. A boy had lived and died here, and somehow, he was still around. That night, as I tucked Jacob into bed, I looked around his room, half expecting to see something. But there was nothing, just the familiar quiet of our home. I lay awake long into the night, thinking about the boy who'd lived in Jacob's room, and wondering what it all meant. The storm outside was raging, howling against my windows like a wild animal trapped in the night. I've never liked storms, and being alone in my 2-story house made it worse. Every flash of lightning sent shadows dancing across the walls, playing tricks on my eyes. That's when I first saw it. A silhouette outside my window. Just a person-shaped shadow, standing still. I told myself it was just a trick of the light. But every flash of lightning, There it was, standing in the same spot. My heart began to race. I had to check. I mustered the courage to peek through the blinds. Nothing. Just the rain hammering against the window and the wind whipping the trees into a frenzy. Feeling a bit foolish, I returned to my couch, trying to focus on the TV show playing in the background. But the unease didn't leave me. The lightning continued, and each time, that silhouette appeared. It was too distinct to be a shadow or a tree. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who would be standing outside my house in the middle of a storm? I reached for my phone, intending to call my best friend, Mike. As I dialed his number, the line crackled with static. I barely got out a hello before the call dropped. Then, as if on cue, the power went out. The house plunged into darkness, save for the occasional flash of lightning. My heart pounded in my chest. I fumbled for my phone, using it as a flashlight. I decided to check the doors and windows, making sure they were locked. As I moved through the house, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Every flash of lightning made me jump, half expecting to see that figure inside the house with me. Reaching the kitchen, I looked out the window. Again, the figure appeared with the lightning, but this time it seemed closer. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know if there was someone out there. I opened the back door, the wind and rain hitting me like a physical force. I stepped onto the porch, shining my phone's light into the darkness. "Who's there?" I shouted over the storm. No response, just the howling wind. I strained my eyes in the darkness, scanning the yard. The lightning flashed again, illuminating the entire area. But there was no one, just the empty, storm-ravaged yard. I felt the rain soaking through my clothes, the cold seeping into my bones. With a shiver, I stepped back inside and locked the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My mind raced with possibilities. Was I just imagining things? Or was there really someone out there watching me? I decided to go upstairs, thinking I'd feel safer in my bedroom. As I ascended the stairs, the lightning continued its relentless assault outside. Each flash felt like it was exposing me, making me more vulnerable. Reaching my room, I quickly closed the curtains and crawled into bed, trying to find some semblance of comfort under the covers. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil in my mind. I lay there, listening to the thunder, waiting for sleep that never came. Every little noise made me jump. Every creak of the house made me hold my breath. I felt trapped in a nightmare, awake yet not awake. Then, during one particularly bright flash of lightning, I saw it again, the silhouette. This time it was right outside my bedroom window. I sat up, heart pounding. But when I blinked, it was gone. Was I losing my mind? Morning came with no resolution. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside calm and bright. I felt drained, like I had spent the night battling my own fears. I mustered the courage to go outside and investigate. The ground was muddy from the rain, and that's when I saw them. Footprints leading up to my window. They were real. Someone had been out there watching me. The discovery sent a new wave of fear through me. I wasn't imagining things. There was someone, a stranger, who had stood outside my window in the dead of the stormy night. I called the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do. No crime had been committed, they said. But the incident left me feeling vulnerable, exposed. I couldn't shake the image of that figure, standing in the storm, watching me. From that night on, I made sure my doors and windows were always locked. I invested in better security, but the sense of safety I once felt in my home was gone. The memory of that night lingered, a constant reminder of the unseen visitor who came with the storm.